idea of walking through or bringing a certain narrative within the building was also to connect in a way with local materials, with local people. So the tapestry work that I made here is actually one drawing, but divided into 4 parts. The tree is one tree of 33 meters divided into 4 parts. And each floor that you enter opens up a different narrative, but that narrative, when compressed together, becomes one. I wrote one poem, and that poem has the titles of each floor in it. So, on earth, sunlight; on earth, midnight; twilight; on earth, abyss. Poetry is a way of thinking, I think. For me, it's, I don't normally like writing texts about my work, but if you would want me to explain my work, then read a poem. I think what poetry does is to be able to amplify the emotions, to amplify the thoughts, but to give it a place that goes beyond a place that is so reduced in the language of politics or economy. The tapestries really start from a place of underneath the earth, the sea, the deep sea, into the sunlight. So you're going through the different stages in which the places of darkness, the abyss, shifts into the midnight zone, then shifts into the twilight, where the light meets when light meets darkness, and then the final zone, which is the sunlight, where everything is hot and burning. There are different histories that are colliding within the tapestry. On the ground floor, you have the histories of human beings that have been lost at sea. And one of the biggest loss that we've had in many centuries was also the movement of Africans from the continent into other continents, and many did not make it to the Americas or to South America. Death, life, the places in between that, but not only thinking of death as death, but thinking of the end of something which transits into something else. So when I think of energy, that energy is never lost, but energy is always in transition. So if we think of death, or we think of someone dying, we don't just think of it as an end, but we think of it as something that, oh, it is something that shifts from a human being into another kind of being, into a mineral, into soil, into plants, and then we take it up again and use it up. And so it's this continuous cycle of energies that have been shifting through time. The title On Earth came from just thinking of things that you're opening up. So, but it fell quite nicely, the notion of earth and soil. But to unearth something is to open up something, to reveal. The tree, it was important that the tree comes from the region. Because during the exhibition, I'm interested in the way people relate to a tree that you never kind of like see in its full extension. When I told the museum that I would want a tree to go through the building, I was also thinking of what it meant to take something out of a place. And what does it mean, that emptiness or that hole within that space? And so the idea was to be able to take a tree out and to plant 3 others. And that's the same way of thinking about that notion of as that life goes, another life comes in. But what was interesting while I was talking to Hubert about the tree that he had taken out, he said it was a good thing we took out this tree because it was blocking the light for all the trees, the younger trees that were growing. So at one point in time, they would have had to cut down this tree because it would have give space for new trees to grow. The ropes are ways of connecting the contained glass pieces to the tree. One of the aspects I was thinking of, you have a tree that is slowly dying during the time of the exhibition. So since it's been uprooted, it doesn't have its roots anymore. It doesn't have the soil to feed from. So what is happening, it's slowly decaying or slowly dying within the exhibition. But the ropes connect the tree to a thing, almost like an umbilical cord to life. And within this glass containers, you have a new life that is sprouting, that is contained within the glass itself. So that relationship of something dying and something that is having a continuous life, the rope is there to connect both as a kind of symbolic, but as a kind of real statement of these two that are intertwined together. The third floor is a floor that contains, I think, that brings the whole other three floors into a condensed and compressed state. And that relationship of working with local materials or meeting the region through people. Martin Rack has always been on my list of who I'd want to work with because he was one of the references in relation to the work that I did in Cave to Flow, Documenta. So when I was invited here, one of the questions I asked was, who can I work with that will be able to work with Earth? And it's just been amazing because the relationship has been seamless, has been very fluid. And we worked together in a way of planning for the soil, for the earth, for the third floor. The way of thinking of the exhibition was to really shift from the abyss, the deep sea, that relationship to the vent, the heat and the cold at the same time, and to go up to another extreme, which is the sunlight. And as time goes on, with the heat, the temperatures of the room, the humidity, all that, the water evaporates and leaves the soil dry. So it's a way of just thinking of this kinds of constellations of places that are becoming much drier. We're seeing trees burn easily. We're seeing more forests that are, like in California or in Congo, in the Amazons. In Greece, we saw this here in Turkey. I mean, Siberia, I can name a huge amount of places that have been going through this process of burning and how easy it is for things to evaporate and to disappear. And so I think these are things that have touched me over the years. And just to think of that possibility of walking through a landscape that is dry, what it means. And a lot of times we're saying, oh, the planet will not survive because of the way we are treating it, the climate and all that. But actually, these are the elements that will survive longer and better than us. So no matter how much we are putting it under stress and that we are creating unlivable and unbearable systems and structures, I think one of the things that will survive the most is actually the plants, the trees. No matter what, they will find a way of like continuing without even our care. So the thing that one thinks about is actually who are we worried about? Are we worried about other life forms, or are we actually just worried about ourselves?